Hi, this is Chris. You'll remember that I'm on a hunger strike for 42 days in protest against the rollout of universal credit here in the UK. Universal credit is a benefit that's given to people when they're unemployed or they've lost their job through ill health. The whole idea of universal credit was to crunch down the 6 existing benefits and make them into one, to make the whole system more straightforward and simplify it. And in the words of the government, to make work for people. Sadly, that's not been the case. The reason I'm on a hunger strike for 42 days, the current situation is that when you apply for the benefit, you have to wait for 42 days before you get any money whatsoever, which I can't imagine what that must be like for folk. So, yeah, 42 days, that's where I'm at. 27 days in. So, just recently we had the budget here in the UK, and Philip Hammond, our Chancellor, told us to great aplomb that this 42-day wait was going to be reduced to 35 days. Now, the cynical part of me thinks that the idea has always been 35 days, but I think they were worried that 35 days would be seen as unacceptable. So they started off with 42 days and then reduced it to 35 to make it all the more palatable for the British public. That could just be my cynical side, but you know, hey, that's me. So yeah, the other thing to bear in mind as well is that the benefit isn't going to be reduced to 30. The waiting time isn't going to be reduced to 35 days until February next year. So for those of you who thought I was going to stop hunger striking, you're wrong. I'm just going to continue. Because there are people here today in the UK who have lost their job through mental ill health, physical ill health, lack of fortune, and they suddenly find themselves in a situation where they have no money until after the new year. And this is at Christmas time. You know, it's just desperate for folk. Again, I can't imagine what it was like. My own feeling is that this is some kind of grand shifting of debt from the government to the poor. So the government are doing this to make their books look better. And in so doing, they're pushing people on benefits or people with no money into a black hole of despair and debt. It's a whirlpool of debt. Once they enter into it, you know, there's no way out. And I'll explain. Imagine you're a person who's under 25, okay? Now, you're told that your universal credit, once you get it, will be £58.10 a week. So that's quite a paltry sum to be starting off with, £58.10 a week. So you think, right, I've got no money, I'm going to borrow £58.10 a week. So over that 5-week period, because we're being generous, we're thinking that the government, we're imagining ourselves next February that there's only a 5-week wait. So that sum comes to £290.50. Now, I don't know about where you are, but certainly here in the UK, people who are on low incomes, the only access to credit they have is through very high interest credit through payday loan sharks. Did I say sharks? Companies who will lend the money out more easily, but at a huge premium. Now, Sunny, which is a large money lender here in the UK, their loans cost 1,277% per annum. Okay, so working that out over a year, the interest on your £290.50 for your very poor person works out at £379. Sorry, £3,709. And that's without paying the debt off. That's just interest. The government can borrow money at 0.25%. That's 1/4%. Okay? If they borrowed that same £290.50 over the year, they would pay in interest 73 pence. So get that into your mind. So a poor person borrowing £290.50, it will cost them £3,709. The government, 73 pence. It's a transfer of debt. It makes the government look better, but at what cost? We're told that people can get crisis payments. Now, when a lot of people who go and apply for universal credit, they're doing it for the first time. They don't know what they're doing. They go there believing that there's a safety net. They go there believing that the Department of Work and Pension assessors will tell them all that's available to them. And very often they don't tell them even that there are crisis funds available. Now these crisis funds, now bear in mind, they're a maximum of half of what you'd get from your universal credit in the end. So we're talking about very small sums of money. I've been speaking to people have been getting in touch with me saying that they've been told that they can only get a maximum of 2 crisis loans. So on top of the fact that it's only half of the amount that you would normally get, you can only get it twice over a 5-week period. These same people have gone back to the Department of Work and Pensions and said, I've got no money, what am I supposed to do? And they're being told quite blandly, go to food banks. So something that's not built into the system, this isn't publicly funded. Food banks rely purely on charity. So people are going to food banks. Now, the other thing to remember, again, here in the UK, you can only go to a food bank 3 times a year. So, and for a lot of people, that'll be spent really quickly. When this all sort of started, we were hearing that people are either heating or eating. But under this system, people are doing neither. They don't have money for anything. People who have families. Can you imagine having families under this system? It's Christmas. One of the biggest cultural events in our calendar. Adverts are everywhere. You walk out in the street, Christmas decorations, everything. Children are being told, have you been bad or good? And Santa will give you something if you've been good. And there'll be millions of kids around thinking, I've been bad. Enough on that. The other big part of the benefit system just now is benefit sanctioning. Now, with benefit sanctioning, people can have their benefits stopped from anything between 3 days and 3 years for missing appointments, for not filling out a form correctly, for not crossing your T's correctly, for not dotting your I's. As having their benefits stopped. So I heard from one woman who'd had her benefit stopped for a year. I mean, earlier I'd heard from a woman who'd had her benefit stopped for 12 weeks, still not knowing if they were going to be reinstated. It's that uncertainty. We are inflicting anxiety onto our most vulnerable at the time when they're most vulnerable. It's a constant bombardment. It's breathtaking. Anyway, my big argument about benefit sanctioning is it's a punishment without due legal process. Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights tells us that people have a right to a fair trial, including the right to a public hearing before an independent and impartial tribunal. again, within a reasonable time. They should expect the presumption of innocence and other minimum rights for those charged with a criminal offence. Things like adequate time and facilities to prepare their defence, access to legal representations, they have a right to examine witnesses against them. Now, this is key with the Department of Work and Pensions. People are having their benefits stopped by nameless, faceless bureaucrats. People are having their benefits stopped by people they don't know, people they can't go back to. These individuals within the Department of Work and Pensions are laughingly called the decision maker. And if you don't know who's accused you, how are you supposed to even combat that? So they should be able to examine the witnesses against them, or have the right for them to be examined on their behalf. And they should also have the right for free assistance of an interpreter. And none of this is happening. People are having their benefits stopped with a tick of a pen or a click of a mouse, and it feels like they have no response to it. It's desperate. This has to change. These things have to stop. I want people today to go to their MPs, the local councillors, and say, look, this is totally unacceptable. That people in our country are currently waiting 42 days for any money. Come February, we'll be waiting 35 days for no money. This has to be reduced to, I'd say, for a maximum of a week. And because otherwise people are just falling into spirals of debt. The sanctioning system just has to stop. When I applied for benefits 1,000 years ago when I was young, that the amount of money you got on benefits was seen as sanction enough. Nobody wants to live on that tiny amount. People want to get out of that, but for some reason, punishing people, kicking people while they're down seems to be perfectly acceptable. From my perspective, this is day 27 of a hunger strike. And I can honestly say it's shit. The things that stand out for me are the cold. I feel the cold a lot now. I'm wearing a fleece in the house and the central heating on. Obviously I feel hungry. I also hungry, cold. Energy, sorry. I have a lack of energy. So my energy reserves every day, it feels like they're getting lower and lower. So I get tired earlier in the day. And for a system that's saying, well, we're preparing people to get into work, we're motivating people to get into work. If you're feeling this knackered, if you're feeling this cold, if you're feeling this bitter, this, I don't know, beaten by the system, you're not exactly going to skip out there and present your best self. The whole benefit system, universal credit, they expect you to apply for universal credit online. Now, where are you going to get money for your broadband? We're told that people can go to libraries to apply, but there have been huge cuts in local libraries. We're being told that people can go to the local job centres, and I think the last time I heard they were going to be cutting thousands of job centres. So people are just being left to, I don't know, just wallow. I'm lucky, I'm fortunate. I'm able to take vitamin pills and electrolyte drinks, and they're keeping me alive and well. It keeps my body functioning. These aren't accessible to people who are in this position. The cold I feel, like I say, I can go into a hot bath. People are slowly dying of hypothermia. I mean, it's getting colder, and people are being told, we're hearing that people can either heat or eat, and they're able to do neither. I can heat and eat, and if I wanted to, but this just isn't available to people. Hypothermia is there. It's not one of these things you get by walking around the Arctic. Hypothermia is something that you get by living in suboptimal conditions. If you're living in low temperatures all the time, it will slowly creep in and it will slowly kill you. The BMJ, the British Medical Journal, recently published a paper saying that since austerity began, 120,000 people have died prematurely because of these draconian sanctions. It's dire, it's desperate, and if 120,000 people had been killed by terrorists, we'd be all over it, and rightfully so. There'd be marches in the street, but because it's austerity, we somehow, I don't know, do we think that people have brought it on themselves? Or I'm not like these people. These people are you. These people aren't skivers. These people are just like you, who have unfortunately, by no fault of their own, they've got a physical health problem, they've got a mental health problem, or they've just lost their job. And suddenly they're into this spiral of debt, this debt that's been transferred from the government to the poor. And that's all that's happened. The government looks better while we blame the poor for being poor. So please go to your local councillor and go to your local MP and say, this isn't good enough, this cannot go on. We must reduce the waiting time to a maximum of a week. Otherwise, our poorest people are going to be falling into that spiral of debt. We must remove benefit sanctions. They have to stop. People with mental health problems are hugely overrepresented in this number, hugely. So you've got people with mental health problems going to their doctors, and saying, I have a mental health problem, I need a service. The doctors are saying to them either, you'll have to be on a long waiting list, or there's no service for that kind of thing that you've got. And then they're being told they've got no money. It's horrible. Remember, the system isn't failing. Put that at the forefront of your mind. The system is not failing. The system is doing exactly what the system was set up to do. And that is to punish poor people. I think that's all I've got to say just now. I'm going to try and keep updates coming through over the next few weeks. But yeah, thanks for listening. Please share this about the place. Please have conversations with people about this. It'd be great to just, revive the conversation. It feels like since the budget, people are thinking, well, job done. They've reduced the waiting time by 7 days. 7 days is nowhere near good enough. Okay, thanks for tuning in. God, that makes me old. But yeah, listen in, and hopefully I'll be talking to you again very soon. Bye just now.